Real Talk Fishing with No Limits, brought to you by Seaguar High Performance Braids. 7 reels, keeping your lines tight, and clean cutting station by Rufflin Kennels.
Hey folks, Brian Bashore here with Seaguar Line. And as a professional tournament angler and guide, what connects the angler to the fish is one of the most important aspects of fishing for me. I'm going to tell you about this fairly new, it's been around a few years now, Seaguar Line PEX8. This is a braid. This is an ultra thin 8-strand braid from Seaguar. If you're in a high pressure kind of fishy area where you need to be really sensitive and precision, this is the go-to stuff for those high pressured fish. Finesse fishing, it is your key. Castability, this is a 24-pound braid with a 15-pound diameter. You can cast this stuff a mile. It's gonna just come off those reels real nice and slick. Sensitivity, you don't lose any strength with this braid. It is still just as strong as anything out there, but ultra thin, castability, durability, awesome. If you're like me and you fish a lot of rivers, it's gonna help you cut that current as well. Check it out at seaguar.com, PEX8.
Hey folks, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Real Talk Fishing with No Limits. Today, heading over talking to the man, another fellow cold snap pro, Mr. Joe Bricko. Joe, what's going on? How's it going? You've been fishing? What's happening?
Hey, Brian. Hey, thanks for having me on. Yeah, I have been fishing. We came back from Green Bay and fished the NWT there, and got a couple more to go. But yeah, it's been an interesting summer. Yeah, some struggles, some success, but all in all, just fortunate to be able to chase the tournament game like you.
Yeah, it's living the dream, they say, right? We're all living the dream here. I'm living in a camper. It's a hell of a dream.
Yeah.
But yeah, we are blessed and fortunate to be able to do it. As much as we all want to bitch about a tournament when it doesn't go the way you want it to go, which if you're not on top, that's usually not the way you want it to go. You can be content and happy with a good finish sometimes because you just are like, that's all I was on, and and it worked out, and I'm good with that. Obviously, you want to win. We all want to win. But Green Bay, I mean, shit, you just guys got back from Green Bay, and that fish, I'm bummed I didn't go because I typically suck at Green Bay and just don't catch a ton of fish. And it looks like catching a ton of fish was the easy thing.
Yeah, it was great. It was way better than our expectations. Like all tournament guys, you look at past standings and you make some contacts and you try to gauge what it's going to take to be in that top 10. We always kind of set our sights on that, and it's like, well, what do we have to search for here in practice? And we kind of figured if you could get mid 35 pound range to upper 38 39, you were going to be pretty dangerous. So we went there with that expectation, and we were doing a bit better each day, and none of us had been there. The last time I was there was 25 years ago, and I was helping a guy fish for the TWT, if you can imagine that.
Yeah.
That's how long ago that was. So it had been 25 years since I, was on the water there at Green Bay. So I literally had nothing to go off. So we had a clean slate, and we just went out fishing, and we were pretty consistently from day one of practice, catching, 7-pounders pretty regularly. We were seeing some 8s the day one. We had, a 9.5, and we were like, boy, either we're doing something remarkable or the bite is really good. And it just turned out that the bite was really good.
Yeah, that 35, 37 was like 80th place.
Yeah, which some of the heavy hitters of the lake, guys that live on it, that are always near the top of the standings. Like if you listen to Eric McCoy, a couple weeks going in, he's like, yeah, if you can put together 2 38-pound days, you're going to be really dangerous. And if you hit 40 both, I mean, you're probably going to take this thing home. So, we were going in with that expectation. Yep. And then day one, I was just a bit shy of 40 pounds. And I was like, my gosh, I was just elated, came in. The old scale was bouncing, 40, 39, 12. So I locked in just shy of 40. And I came in early because of the slots, obviously. Yep. You only had 1 to play with there. You could have 6 in the live well, and you had to weigh 5. So I came in early, and then I was listening to people coming in after me, and it was 42, 44, 46. And then my teammate who fished in my area came in, and I heard Jeff. I was trying to get my co situated, and I hear 49, and I was like, "Oh my god!" So it was finally a good bite. I mean, I had a real bummer of a day one on Lake Erie where I got all kind of twisted up with the big wind and had a fuel problem and just had probably the worst tournament day I've ever had in my 26 some years. So I came out of the gates just, way behind, and then had an okay day two on Erie, but it put me way below 100. I mean, it was awful for me. And then Oahe, tough bite, came in there with high expectations, big fish, capital of the world, thought we were going to live scope fish in the trees. And after I, banged my head on the concrete for 3 days trying that, I resorted to trolling. And I didn't even come with trolling rods. I own a fishing rod company and ended up borrowing rods.
Hey guys, can I borrow some of my rods?
Hey, I need to borrow. Yeah, I called my Bismarck buddies and I'm like, hey, I need to borrow some rods. They're like, what? So I went back to the roots and put together a trolling, program, and actually did okay there. Going back to the basics. I think I was like, it was 41st to 42nd. So I just missed the check, but so kind of started out a little bit rough. So kind of back to your question, it was great to finally get on a good bite at Green Bay, and due to some work stuff and family commitments, I ended up having to miss Beta Knock. So, and I hear that was pretty good. Everyone's bite was fun and better than it's ever been, really.
Yeah, that was phenomenal. And that's the main reason I went to that one, was I'd never been there. Like, you hadn't been in Green Bay. And I'm like, I want to go here and chase these, these big fish out here. And it was literally just a few hours into practice. I'm like, okay, well, that wasn't very hard. I mean, 31 and a half, 29 and a half, 30 inches, 27, 28. I'm like, does it get better? I can't imagine it getting any better than this, then you don't want to beat those fish up. Then you go find another spot kind of close by, and then you just watched them all week. Some slid, up from shallow or out to deeper, and you're just like, and then it was kind of windy on some days. You're like, I'm not going to go out in that crap. There's no reason to when the fish are right here in the bay, and this is not kind of anywhere from 9 feet to 20 something feet. And it was just kind of stupid easy. But you're like, it didn't take long to go. Everybody's on this. And then you'd see boats flying in and out. I'm like, all right, then Wednesday before the tournament, when you're out driving around, got out there pretty early, ran over, made 2 casts, hooked a big one. I'm like, all right, put the rod away. Went out to a different spot, made another cast, hit a 30. I went, okay, they're clear out here too. So then I just drove around with, rods away and your arms crossed and just kind of looking. And here comes Kai doing the same thing. Here comes Keurig doing the same thing. Nobody's got a rod in their hand. Here's Hoyer. Yeah. None of us have a rod. We're just kind of looking like, yeah, they're here. I think I was back at the hotel by 11, washing the boat. Like, I think everybody would have been fine if, like, Monday morning they said, hey, we're going to move the tournament up to today. Everybody all right, great, let's go. Let's get this thing started. So, yeah, that was fun. I haven't been on a bite like that, and it sounds like Green Bay was kind of the same way. So, but
it was. It was ton of big fish. I mean, the average size there is crazy. Like on Beta Knock, you had to have those 22 inches, right, or under 23s or
under 23, yeah. And the problem was they were all really skinny. They literally just were post spawn, is why they're feeding so good. But they were just skinny. And I mean, if you could find, like, my third cast on the first day was a 28, but it was 8+ pounds because it was fat. I'm like, oh yeah, but you could coal, right? So that keeps everything going. The smaller ones are kind of healthy, but all those big ones are all kind of skinny. You're looking for the fat ones, but now you're in the Green Bay and it's July and they're pretty fat.
They're well fed. I would say if it would have been that kind of format where you needed under 23, that would have been a pretty big problem. On Green Bay now, it's really it's pretty tough to get fish under. I mean, we caught some 5-pounders, but we probably caught more 7-pounders than 5-pounders. 6 was kind of the average type of fish, so it would have been a struggle if it wasn't all big fish. I mean, we would have had to adapt and obviously fish some different areas and do some different stuff.
You would have been on Geno's Reef or up in the river or something like that, just trying to find
something different. But it would have been, I think it would have been a bit tougher. I mean, it was still with that format. I mean, you gotta really have some balls of steel. I mean, when you need to throw 7-pounders back, to swing for it on day 2, you're just like, what am I actually doing? How could I even do that? It's terrifying, right? And you
Right.
do it, and you gotta. I
But
mean,
you could see
that's
it.
the biggest untold story is everyone looks at the weights. Nobody knows really, unless you were, had a camera boat,
Right.
on the decisions that needed to be made to cash a check in that tournament. So I threw some 7s back, and I thought to myself, I'm either the dumbest person alive, or I've just made the gamble of my life, and it worked out. So, but what a tough deal. It's such a major variable.
Right. Then you're right. People don't know that. Obviously, day 2 now the bar's been set, so everybody kind of knows, and so everybody's throwing those 7s back, going, I got to get 8 pluses to even make a bump up.
Yeah.
Then the bite shuts off, and now you're stuck. But I mean, I think Boyer even said he had 1 fish, then all of a sudden the last 30 minutes went pop, 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 just to go throw some in the box.
Yeah.
And you'll get that. You'll come in with 3 or 4 fish. You'll be like, oh, the guy couldn't even catch 5. It's like, no, the guy got 30, 40 fish today. I just threw them all back because they weren't 8-pounders, And at this point, if you're far enough behind, you're like, besides points, you're like, none of this matters. I mean, a lot of us fish for the win, and you come in with 2 or 3 fish. You're like, because I don't care about points. I'm not going to championship. I'm not, a local. That's kind of the whole debate on why a lot of the pros, are frustrated with locals jumping in on these, and the format's been changed for next year. Is these guys have nothing to lose? They're just coming in and like, why? There you go. They're just swinging, and that's that. I don't care about points. Don't care about nothing else. This is it. And obviously
they're fine with last, but if they catch lightning in a bottle, they're going to win it. So, and it comes down to, what you're trying to achieve, because I missed my second, or the third tournament there. I was, I had no shot at the championship. So I was kind of swinging for it. So it gave me a little more bandwidth to, get a little bit more risky, and I think that helped. So, but even at 82 pounds or whatever I came in with, that's only good for, 15th. So it was way up.
Unbelievable. But hey, I mean, I think Dylan finished pretty good too. And then obviously, your partner Topper freaking won the whole thing. So
you
guys were on the right spots.
Fun watching it go down, because both days, I mean, the only boat in sight was him, and we weren't even in talking, distance.
Yeah.
And, I mean, that's how big that school was and how much room there was. I mean, how often can you be on a winning program and not having to compete with, another boat? So,
that's usually how you win.
Yeah, it's usually how you win. I look back over 26 years, and normally you are kind of alone.
Yep.
So,
what do you say? You've been doing this for a long time, Joe. I think you and Dylan fished together, didn't you, for a while there in the AIM stuff? And you've been doing a lot of the AIM, then Graha, and tell me a little backstory on when you started all this tournament fishing and just in general.
Yeah. So the first walleye tournament I ever fished was in 2000. I was still in college and jumped into one in Alexandria, Minnesota. Still a long-standing, walleye tournament. It was a 2-day event, so I kind of hopped right into a tough one, 100-boat field back then, and that's where I cut my teeth. So from then, for the first 15 years, I just do small, little local tournaments, and kind of caught the fire that way. And then met the Grand Rapids guys, Dylan Mackey and Randy Topper, and a bunch of guys up there, and we jumped into the AIM as a team. We did that in 2016 and had a lot of success there. Dylan and I have a team of the year. We got multiple runner-ups, a couple state championships. We've won the boat a few times in the national championship. So we kind of did it all there, and felt like it was maybe time to move on. So that's where we started jumping into some of these NWTs. Last year we fished on Sharp, and that was our first NWT, and we immediately had some success. My partner Nate Leininger, he finished second. Randy was third, and I finished fifth. So we were like, wow, here we go. So fast forward to fast
Was
forward
it?
to this year, and
Yep.
well, it wasn't quite that easy. We went to
Nope.
Erie, and we pretty much got our butts whooped and learned a lot about dirty water and big wind and currents and everything else. And I had fished in NTC on Erie, so I felt like I was prepared. But what I wasn't prepared for is
I fish all over the Midwest, and more often than not, I find myself with a nice limit of fish, one to take some home for dinner, and there's no cleaning station. Early in the season, late in the season, if there are cleaning stations, they're usually closed up, or you're camping or you're real primitive somewhere. But the solution is the Clean Cut Station by Rufflin Kennels. I always have this thing with me in the truck. Comes in more handy than I can explain. Not just for cleaning your fish, cleaning your small game. If you're having parties, cutting your ham, Thanksgiving, you can flip it over, make a party bowl out of it with, put your chips and dip and everything in it. It is extremely handy, very versatile. But mine's in my truck, getting clean, using it for cleaning fish most all the time. Absolutely love it. I don't leave home without it. Check them out at rufflinkennels.com, the Clean Cut Cleaning Station.
A massive wind and dirty water and, scrambling around and not being able to find anything fishable and kind of losing most of my day and kind of.
And not being able to scramble around.
And not being able to scramble, but still trying to do it.
Yeah. It sucks.
Yeah.
Tough to go look for them when it takes you an hour to go just a few miles up the lake.
Yeah, debatable whether we should have even gone that day, but nonetheless, some guys figured it out, and they still whacked them. So hats off to those guys. But and then other than that, we always hop in MWC. We always do Cass. Graha is a big local one. A lot of bragging rights there, and a really really fun weigh-in process. That's in Grand Rapids, Minnesota. They take the ice out of the hockey rink in the summer, and that tournament gets to use the Civic or the ice arena there. So you drive the boats in, and it's like our little mini version of the Bassmaster Classic, and the community rallies around it. And there's a ton of kids there. Most of the hockey youth teams are there in attendance because it, supports the cause for them. And you get to go on the stage in the hot seat for the top 10. And then they have a version of the Stanley Cup where you can etch your name in there. And Dylan and I have been fortunate enough to do that twice. And Randy did it this year and put his name on there a fourth time. So he's been on a hot
boats
streak.
Are in that? How many? That's big.
It's always 100 and people are just begging to get in that one. There's a waiting list every single year, and it's all no one gives up that spot.
Right.
So it's you gotta, if you get in, you wanna hold your spot.
That's it. I'm coming back. It looks. I've watched it for years on social and talked to Jimmy Bell and some others about it. I'm like, that one just looks like it's well ran. It's done good. Yeah. They make it a big production, a big show. Kind of what everybody keeps asking. They would wish the NWT or whatever would or could do.
Yeah.
But it takes these communities to really step up, and they're the ones that make those things happen.
It does, and I understand the logistics behind it. Yep. And I'm a business owner myself, and know that it economically it's got to make sense. Yep. I tell you though, if every walleye tournament could have a weigh-in like Graha does it, there'd be a way larger attraction, and there'd be way more coverage and probably sponsor opportunities because they really do it right. I mean, if I wasn't a fisherman and there was something like that, I'd want to go. I mean, you're coming in, you're throwing candy to kids. I mean, there's a raffle for a boat. They have, a beer truck set up. I mean, it's everything you can imagine. And you're indoors. I mean, it's awesome. It's kind of the gold standard for what I wish every weigh-in, could be.
Right. It's what I hear a lot of the guys talk about. It was a PWT Bismarck. Mm-hmm. That they did that, way back in the day, and it's the whole. If you build it, they will come. Yeah, but somebody has to do some effort, do a little work, and then the money, obviously, right? It's got to make sense. It's got to take some upfront investment for a season, I think you can make it happen pretty quick. You just start, not even a whole year of it. You just kind of show up 1 or 2 tournaments, and it's going to snowball, and you're going to see results by the end of the season, and then next year, now you have some numbers and some value proposition to present and get more sponsorship, and dollars like that to make it.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to see them, do a pilot with trying that and get into some communities where you have some kind of, a civic center or something where you could pull something off like this and you can,
Yep.
Drive the boats in and do, you wouldn't be able to do it with everybody probably,
Right.
but if you limited it to, let's say top 30 or top 40 and, everyone's got to weigh in. So you'd have to, do something unique there. But I think it'd be a huge draw, and it would really add to the viewership.
Well, you're in business. You do the whole sponsor thing. You sponsor people and have sponsors most likely, so you get it.
Yep.
There's not a whole lot of value in some of the NWT stuff because the television show is pretty minimal. I mean, 30-minute show. You got a 2-day tournament crammed in 22 minutes basically, right? And it's a whole lot of stage time. So there's jerseys. Now they're doing some live streams, so we got that. That's helped considerably, and so there's that. Everybody, some of the better live streams are the ones that everybody's kind of doing themselves. It's a pain in the ass because I tried it and burnt through 3 GoPros every time I did it. They fried for whatever reason. So, thanks to GoPro for sending me all new ones every time, but it still sucked. So I'm like, I don't know, everything worked fine, and that it would just fry it. But yeah, it's you're trying to do some of that yourself. There's just a lot of costs associated with it, type stuff. But you need a bigger stage, a bigger presence. The driving makes more sense for that truck wrap, that boat wrap. There's photos here and there, but I've been saying it for years. If you want it, you got to create it yourself. Just you got to be you're the best media person you can be as you. That's how you're going to get it.
That's true. Yeah, and I get to see it on both sides because I'm a tournament fisher and I get to take advantage of some of the resources that that get brought in with contingency type of cash, and I do the Ranger Cup thing, and there's Garmin dollars and all this. But then I also see it on the other side where I sponsor individual people, and I sponsor the AIM and some other tournament circuits, and you really I kind of have to turn my business brain off to okay, what's the return on this? I spend X, I got to make that up, plus some in this amount of rod sales. And if you do that, you probably won't sponsor, anything because it's hard to have it all make sense. I really do it because I want to see these things, succeed. Yep. I love tournament fishing. I want to make sure that the future, is there. So I feel like I kind of, do my part by, giving up some cash to make sure they're successful. So that's really how I look at it. Not everything can be, dollars and cents within business. Sometimes you got to make, decisions for some different reasons.
No, you're spot on. That's the right lens that you have to look at it through. And I've talked to other companies that, that I work with that sponsor professional anglers or tournament circuits and whatever. I'm like, I look at them like, there's no way you're selling enough rods, reels, tackle, because of this tournament. Individuals that can be different. Some guys can make are making the moving the needle, but on some of the tournaments, I'm like, there just isn't. There's no live stream. There's no TV with it. There's no even a YouTube. There's just no coverage. A couple Facebook posts isn't going to cover it. But I'm like, but I get it. Mercury or Nitro, whatever. You're supporting the circuit because it provides a platform for anglers to do what they do. And if you don't have anglers, you don't have anybody to buy your product down the road. Period.
Yeah, it's, with the way I look at it, you have to do something, right? I mean, you have to keep your brand out there. They're not always going to make sense. You can't always quantify them right down with, metrics and say, okay, this investment resulted in X. A lot of it is, what I call locker room talk. And it's guys that see your logo and they, talk about it to other people. And you can't quantify that in social media analytics. It's hard to attach your online sales, whether or how it came from, but at the end of the day, you have to do something. You have to keep your brand alive, and you have to promote, and you have to do some marketing. So every once in a while, you got to make some investments that you can't quantify. And if I'm going to make some investments, it's going to be into the tournament world because I want to make sure it survives.
Yep.
So
Always be branding, right? There's value to it.
Branding is king.
Right. But you'll see it long term. And I always say if a company's still around after a few years, or if you're becoming profits are better or business is growing each year, like it's not broke, right? Don't fix it.
Yeah,
It's working. It always makes maybe some adjustments, or a new tournament circuit pops out, or there may be new opportunities, or you make, maybe bring a little less here, a little, or you up things here or there because of whatever. But there's so much more value. The social media and all that stuff's great. And the podcast, I do newsletters, YouTube. I mean, all those things, and you can validate it all, but you can't put a price. I mean, you can and you can't how it used to be done. How many times, I mean, you have it, I have it, guys come up to you at the gas station when you're filling up your boat, right? He knows you from somewhere. You have no idea who these people are, or they stop you. My wife sees it all the time. We're shopping or whatever. Somebody's like, hey, you're that walleye guy. And I'm like, yeah, or at the boat ramp today or at the bait shop this morning, and they stop and ask you questions, but they see your truck, they see your boat. They're obviously they know who you are. They're watching you on social, or they see it at tournaments, and they're picking your brain, but I've been at weigh-ins and guys like, hey, I got that new, I got those reels, 7 reels you talked about. I got it. I love it. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, all right, go ahead. And if you could email that to the company and let them know that'd be great. That you saw, Brian and Joe talked about this rod or reel and let the owners know. I was like, but they don't do that, and that's fine. But like I said, if obviously the branding works, but if you continue to see numbers go where you want them, then it's working. So and reinvest itself.
Exactly. That's where you look at the big picture. And I started the rod company in 2014, and we've been able to grow every year. So to your point, it's you can't always put your finger on exactly where the returns come from, but you gotta make a decision, and you gotta market somewhere. And we place a lot of our bets around tournament people. So it's either promoting with tournaments through sponsorships, or a lot of it's through individual people. And the one of my kind of prerequisites when someone comes and wants to be on staff, it's always, well, have you used the rods? You wouldn't believe the amount of people that
trust me,
I want to be on your staff. I can really help you. I'm like, fantastic. Okay, so what's your favorite rod that you like in our lineup? Well, I've never actually used your product. And right then and there, I'm like, it really wouldn't do my brand, justice.
No.
Like recently, you probably, see that I added, Bo Schilling and Jaden Wendell. Both those guys have been using my rods for years. Just regular customers, purchase the rods, having a ton of success. That's a compelling story.
Yep.
Because they weren't given product, and they wanted to, they heard about it and they wanted to try it out, and they've had success with it. So that's that's a great story. And a lot of guys are like that. Ted Takasaki came to me the same way. Long time St. Croix guy, forever and ever. And he's like, hey, a buddy of mine turned me on to some of your rods. I've been using them. I'm having some success. I won a tournament up on Winnipeg. I'd like to, work with you on, some higher level stuff. So, that's really what we're seeking out. High integrity guys that have used the product, had success with it, and we can grow together.
Yep, that's I completely. You wouldn't surprise me if you said you had 100 guys email you a day and said, "I want to be on your pro staff," and they've never used your product, because I see it. And I'm just like, seriously, man. But I see it not so much on the NWT level, but all these other smaller local circuits and stuff. And everybody's got their jersey, and they got all these Berkeley and all Rapala and all the stuff on the same jersey. I'm like, not a one of those is your sponsor.
Yeah,
not a single one. Some of those companies do a very good job of saying you got to send in the email that says you're approved to wear it. Some of them backed off, and then some of them are on a program. Maybe it's a select angler program with Pure Fishing or whatever like that, or it's a discount guide program. But a real true sponsorship is completely different than that. But you also got to start somewhere. I get that.
Yeah, definitely. You gotta be a little cautious there. So we're still a small grassroots business, and we need to make sure it's authentic.
Yeah, that's oh man, I should have wrote that down. I had a great thought where we were going with some stuff, and I lost my mind. But It's just it's a game. I get a lot of questions, and if I see a new guy like Bo, and I've talked to him quite a bit, like, hey, you start doing sponsorship stuff, or if you're on the podcast, I'm like, if you need it, just let me know. I will shoot you all the numbers, of your episode or whatever, and say so that you have some stuff because you're getting, And I told Jaden the same thing. You guys are starting out. These are things, I mean, Jaden didn't even know he qualified for the championship. He's like, I still got to go to Green Bay and win. I'm like, dude, you're in. You just have to show up. I'm like, you won.
So you're catch one fish, buddy.
I'm like, you're in. He's like, oh, really? I'm like, yeah, man, you're in. I'm like, but that's okay. I mean, I was 19. I wouldn't have had the good guys are focused on fishing, and that's it. Not the surrounding stuff, but as well as I do because we've been around a little longer. There's a hell of a lot of business involved with this, especially if you're going to make a career out of it. So.
My teammates and I say it all the time. Those North Dakota, South Dakota kids are just they're built different, and it's truly just good old fashioned work ethic. From the outside, there's so much hate on live scope and daddy buying a boat. I tell you what, you spend some time with these kids. They're the first ones at the access. They're the last one to leave, and it's that farm mentality that these kids know how to work. And you can never replace, work ethic. And that's why they're going to continue to have success because they're not afraid to grind sun up, sun down to, put themselves ahead. We added a kid on our team from, Sioux Falls and Gage Backman. He's the same way. He's just an absolute grinder, and they're workhorses, and, and we pride ourselves on being hard workers and, putting in long days. And I tell you, these kids have given us a little kick in the shorts because they work hard. And, I'll tell you, as you start to get a little bit older, you notice that becomes a little bit more difficult to grind a 12-hour on the water day. If it's super hot or super windy, come back, get your tackle squared away, make sure your bait's all good to go. By then it could be 10, 11, 12 at night, and then, be up at, 5 a.m. and then grind another 14 hours. Your body hurts a bit. So
it does. It's not a old man sport anymore, hardly. That's why beta knock was kind of nice. Cause I'm like, we don't need to burn ourselves out, And I remember it was Erie, and we roomed up with Justin Skipper and Randy Hummel and I, and Justin's like, I'm like, what are you good at? And he's like, nah. He said he kind of likes to take it a little easy so he's not burned out come tournament a day. I'm like, totally makes sense. I get it, and when you're rough and it's windy and you're beating the hell out of yourself, that really takes it even out of you more. But I'm like, but as well as I do, it's a mental game. And if you're physically beat down and worn out, your mentality is going to go with it. So, I mean, taking it easy here or there when you can pay dividends come tournament time.
It's a balance. I mean, you don't want to be, so worn out that you can't fish, but it's hard to replace, time on the water. Yeah. We always say the most important day is always that final day, because everything changes. Every tournament guy knows that there could be a winning program on Monday, Tuesday, and then Wednesday you go out and you go, what happened? And you have to have enough energy and an endurance to go, okay, everything changed, put everything behind me. It's a one-day practice. It's the same for everybody. How much can I condense and how hard can I work within this, 6, 7, 8 hours that I have on the short day before the rules meeting? And I tell you, we've had many tournaments where we've put together a whole program scrambling, on the final day because some cold water blew in or there was just some major change. So there's always a balance. And then I feel like we've had times where we just absolutely ground ourselves to death, and it's hard to be, mentally sharp enough, come game day because you didn't have, a proper rest or a day off on a 7-day pre-fish. So it's a touchy balance with preparation, and obviously it's a mental sport as much as any sport is. So
it is. So more often than not, it changes. That's what kind of worried me with beta knock. It was you're a couple hours in, and the same thing happened to me at Lake the Woods, our championship 3 years ago, when Takasaki and I traveled together, and Brent and Randy, and I got there day before him, and by 10 a.m. that day, I was like, hey, stop and pick up some of these scatter wraps, back when we all trolled, trolling the basin. I'm like, this is easy. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, and it's one rod state, so it's driving me nuts pulling lead around with one pull, and I'm putting like 200 feet of lead out. But I
Yeah.
could click it and count to about 10, and it'd go thunk,
Yeah.
and it's these 25 to 30 inches, and I'm like, I've never been here, but this seems pretty easy to me, man.
That
So they
was
stopped, grabbed those baits, and then every day we just kind of went and tried to find different stuff. But that pattern held, and there was one, Max won it right there,
yeah.
right next to me doing the exact same thing. I'm like, okay, and they did not kind of work that way, but you're like, this is horrible. I don't want to find this bite. I want to, but I don't want to find it on your first day of practice because you're like, this is going to be gone. This isn't going to hold.
It's terrifying to go out on day one and have it be that good because the season tournament guy's going to go, it's too good to be true. It's not going to hold for 7 or 8 days. When is the bottom going to get pulled out? I hope I got 2 days to figure it out and it's not on the final day. But I mean, those are all the untold stories behind tournament success. Everyone just looks at the weight and they look at how people did on that day. But just had a good conversation with a long-standing tournament, buddy of mine, Joe Okada, and it's like, the real story that needs to be told, or the series that needs to be told is, what are all the sacrifices that maybe at home? I mean, what are the wives doing to cover? For me, I got 2 kids at home. They're involved in all kinds of stuff, and it's a sacrifice that, what kind of slack is the wife, picking up that allows, you to do this, or what kind of time off do you have to get? Like, I have the rod business, but then I'm also VP of sales at we build gun ranges. So there's sacrifices, that need to be made to be able to do this. Cause you gotta be laser focused. So all those things that get left behind, someone is making a sacrifice or picking up the slack so that, you can do it. And that story is never told. It's like, what did they have to do and what did they have to endure just to be able to, show up and be able to practice for a number of days?
No, you're 100% right. I always try to, thank the wife, and I probably never did on stage near remotely enough. None of us do, right? 'Cause you're all caught up in the moments and stuff, but it's like, the advantages some of these young guys have is that they don't have some of those responsibilities. And people are like, well, they just get to go fishing. I'm like, good for them that they're getting in it young and take advantage of it. And I've told it to them, like, someday you're going to get married, have kids, whatever, a mortgage, you're going to, or own a company, you're going to have all these other responsibilities that take you away from up here, from being able to focus and not spend as 2 or 3 weeks pre-fishing an area or doing whatever it is, Shilling's great about it, saying, hey, Shonda and Sam's daughter, they're running the show. Bo and I are here, and thank God, because none of this happens without you. And it's 100% right. There's a whole nother story. The mower breaks down, or you got a business. I mean, fortunately, guys have partners that allow to do things, but I don't get paid vacation as a fishing guide, which is probably why there's not a lot of fishing guides on tour, because they're like, I only make money one way, and it ain't fishing tournaments. So, it's a big hit. And not only, I mean, obviously, I was picking up the slack back home, but the cost, obviously, this year, I thought it was just getting a little ridiculous, the cost of fuel. Oh,
yeah, it's I just came across this. I think Dusty Minky said it in Tour Level Gold. He's like, it's a $5,000 hand of blackjack, and you have to, because when you boil it down, I keep track of expenses. I mean, every NWT you go to, even if you're conservative and trying, not to eat steak dinners and, get extravagant, you're gonna spend, $5,000, and you have 4 tournaments. So, it's a gamble. It's a big gamble, but
I did a whole episode and I broke it down, and I did it on a whiteboard. Here's your entry fees. Here's your fuel. Here's your food. Here's your lodging. What you're not counting is your time away from work. Now, if you work somewhere and you got paid vacation and that's built in, good on you. There you go.
You're fortunate for that.
Right, you're fortunate. I mean, granted, that's the vacation that you don't get to go spend with your family if
that's
you have one.
Yeah.
If you're a business owner that doesn't have that, or if your business still operates with or without you there, awesome, good, good to go. I have guides and they stay busy, but I don't want to make money off them. So, but they keep customers coming and clients going. So that's good. But, and I was right around that mid-20s, but I'd say this year, probably going to be pushing closer to, 25 to 30, just because the fuel is way higher than what it was anticipated before. And And if you looked at last year's numbers were really low. I'm like, you had to finish in the top 10 every tournament just to get your tournament expenses back.
Yeah.
Now, if you did that, you would have been the Angler of the Year and you would have won a boat.
Yeah.
This year, if you're on the top 10 every tournament, you ain't an Angler of the Year. You better be in the top 5.
Top 5.
I think this is where Bo's at. So that's pretty damn impressive. And the fact that there's a couple, 3 of them that are in there, it's like, good God, you know.
Yeah.
A lot of us, they're just like, we're not in this game anymore. So it's
and that kind of goes, back to what we're talking about, sponsorships. You can't always look at those numbers, because if you did, you would just talk yourself out of it. I mean, for me, I've played sports growing up, played a ton of hockey. Kids all play hockey, so I just got that competitive drive within me. So it's something I'm passionate about, and I always want to be competing in some form of another. It's just what drives me. So if you sit there and break down them numbers like that, you would, if you're a numbers guy, you would talk yourself out of it. It'd be a horrible investment. A financial guy or accountant would be like, just go buy crypto, give that a whirl.
Yep. Yeah, I look at him like, man, I could have had a second home, or vacation home by now, or whatever the case is. But yeah, you do it because you love it. If you're jumping into tournaments because you want to make a living or to make money, you're jumping in the wrong boat. Now, the bass world's different, but there's still the cost of entry to get there. We don't necessarily have a funnel system in the walleye world so much. Trying to kind of create one now a little bit. I think that some things will change in the NWT moving forward with the format change, even though they opened it up bigger and whatever, so it may not change a whole lot. But right concept, a little too late, I think, for me anyway. But it'll benefit some people and be better. But but I like the smaller field concept a little bit, because it opened up more sponsorship opportunities if they continue to do things in that way. Now you open it up a little bigger, you still kind of have that somewhat, but we'll see what the production level of things are out there. And if there's other tournament circuits that, that show up, there's obviously some that were planning on it, kind of didn't pan out. And some of those may show back up. I saw the Classic Bass is doing another one of those walleye things. And I mean, that seems to be, going over well. I looked into them, like, that's the kind of format I want. Not so much of catching as many as you can, but being the only person in the boat. With a Marshall, I'm like, nothing against co-anglers, but I don't want a co-angler on my boat. I want just me, and not have to worry or be responsible for somebody else in Green Bay, since depend on that person catching 3 of your 6 fish.
Yep, that added to the excitement for sure.
Right. So, I mean, you can still hook it and hand the rod off, but it's like, come on. Everybody's like, well, we're going to do this handing the rod off thing. So, but that is what it is. So
little bit of a pain. Yeah. And it's a little bit terrifying with fish that big. It's one thing when it's, your slots, but when you're battling 8-9 pounders and you're watching someone fight those fish, you're just, I mean, it's terrifying, but everyone's in the same boat, and,
everybody's got to do it.
Those, and, they did great, no fumbles, good fishermen. So, it worked out, but it is a variable that you can't control. So, I mean, love the format or hate the format. It's a variable that you really can't control. And that's why we love the AIM format, and we hope that the NXT thing is gonna be able to take hold, because I like fishing with a partner. I like catching big fish. I like being able to upgrade big fish, but that's a bit up in the air. It's a little bit unknown. So I'll be a little bit in limbo. I mean, my hope is that the AIM with their NXT series can, get some traction and take hold. I don't know exactly what's going to happen yet with what version of the NWT rules are gonna take hold. But right now I'm outside of that 80 a little bit, so it's going to be up in the air for me.
Yeah, you and I and Dylan, there's a handful of us. I mean, we didn't fish 4 of them, so you're not going to be in that 80. And theoretically, you're qualified from not fishing all 4, but it doesn't matter, because they still have 10 spots they can just give to whoever they want. However, it's kind of written that way. It doesn't matter to me. I ain't going to fish it regardless. But I think that's now is the time for NXT, right? It's going to give some of those people that, hopefully, I'm sure that's kind of what that board is thinking. Like, all right, maybe now we'll bring some of these guys are going to come over, but a lot of it's just so up in the air. We got to see what does this 2027 NWT look like?
Yeah.
Is it a $4,000 entry, or is it, whatever the case is? I was told from them years ago, it'll always have a co-angler due to a safety issue, due to some of the bodies of water we fish. I'm like, I get it, but now you just have two people at harm's way instead of one. So, okay.
Yeah.
But you could have that anywhere. If something happens to you, somebody else gets to drive your boat. I'm like, well, whatever. But you're referring to the big water, so you're talking about waves and whatever. To me, I'm like, now you just put two people at risk instead of one. But whatever. I don't make those rules.
Yeah. It's it's an interesting time. So it's going to be. Who knows what's going to happen, and
we just don't know, right?
Yeah, I don't see economics working when you cut it down to 80. When they had, what did we have in Hawaii? 100 and what was it?
160. Yeah.
You would have to double the entry fees, and you're going to put a lot of guys just out of reach on that. So,
and when you have a smaller field, I mean, if you're going to leave the entry fees and have a smaller field, your payouts are going to come down considerably. And it's already, even this year, you still need to have 3 top 10s to cover the cost of the season.
Yeah.
That's just the cost of the fishing. That's not your boat, your insurance, your tackle, your gear, right? So once again, don't think about it that way, folks, right? Just don't get into the weeds on it.
Yeah.
So, we do it because we love it. We're passionate. We love it. We're thankful that the AIM and NWT, MWC, and all these circuits are there to give all of us a place to go. And really, it's the guys like you that, and Chase and Corey, all these people you get to meet, and they're just a bunch of good dudes, basically. Just the camaraderie is we're still competitive as hell. But I've made a lot of great friends and acquaintances over the years fishing it. And they're just good people. I had a talk with somebody yesterday, that was like, hey, people are complaining. They think we cheated because we kicked everybody's ass, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And I'm like, the fishermen are the worst, man. The most jealous, insecure people I ever meet, but yet they're also the best, right? Some of them are just the best guys that'll do anything for you to help you out. If your trolling motor broke at the tournament or the day before, it would take you 20 minutes to find a new one and somebody there to help put it on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so much negativity, highlighted right now because, everybody can see it. It's out there. I mean, that's the downfall of social media. But, at the end of the day, I mean, there's the camaraderie amongst, all the anglers. I mean, guys are so willing to go out of their way to help people out. And I noticed that a lot of people, that are, causing a ruckus or negativity, they weren't actually in the tournament. It's keyboard warriors. So, the tournament crowd, I mean, the camaraderie is, second to none. That's another thing that, that keeps me going in this is the guys are great. I mean, almost everyone you come across, they're like-minded people that just, want to compete. And, it's a competitor on the water, but once you're off the water, everybody's pretty much a friend. So.
And you got travel partners, which are probably turning some of your best friends and damn near like family because you got to spend some good and bad days together and go through a lot of ups and downs, right? So
it's up and down.
Lots of up and downs. It's the loudest out there are not in the tournaments. They're not fishing. They don't know you. All that negative stuff is the loudest ones have absolutely no idea what they're talking about most time.
True. Yep. It kind of ruins it, but you take the good with the bad with the social media. So,
well, you've been doing it for a while. You've seen the evolution of it. We're in the live scope era now, and I mean, you're seeing it. We saw it a few years ago at Doubles Lake Championship where we brought in massive 3-day bag of like 90-some pounds, and it was like, I mean, even the locals were like, "Holy crap!" Now you've seen a Green Bay, guys are like, bait and knock, like these are fishing. Everybody's doing it, and everybody's getting better and getting good. Yep. So you're seeing the competitive field kind of. Outside of a few of the very top, there's still a couple 3 hammers that are always up there, but there's new names flying up. Randy Topper flying up and winning, that are getting involved. And what are your thoughts? How you feel about it? Do you like it? I mean, I don't know. It's fun.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot more parity. We were really early adopters with live scope. We latched onto it immediately. We saw that it was going to be the wave of the future, and we saw the benefit almost immediately. So we started full time using live scope the year they released that 32 deucer, which would have been, I believe, looking back, 2020. So we're in our 6th, almost 7th year using it. And I'll tell you, when we first started with it, we're like, man, we're going to have a run with this. Very few of us were in it. And it was easy to be at the top because it was such an advantage. The years click on, you look around, and you're like, everybody has it. Everybody's getting proficient. You started seeing a lot of parity, and that advantage is it's a pretty equal playing field now.
Yep.
I'm always under the mindset that you can't stop technology.
Yep.
You can't fight it in every walk of life. Technology is always going to be there. You're not going to stop it. You're not going to create enough rules around it. You have to embrace it. So,
whatever your skill or experience level is as an angler, you deserve a fishing reel that contributes to your success and satisfaction on the water and never detracts from it. From the makers of St. Croix rods, Seven Reels, spelled Seviin, is born of 7 decades of design and manufacturing expertise, industry-leading angler support, and the American family ownership dating back to 1977. Seven Reels are designed and crafted for high performance and unrelenting reliability. Verified at least 16 different ways by extreme torture testing at Seven's one-of-a-kind Park Falls, Wisconsin laboratory. Seven Reels are also proven on the water by the most demanding professional guides and tournament anglers. So by the time a Seven reaches your hands, it's ready for anything you throw at it. Guaranteed by the best and easiest warranty in the industry. Disappointment happens, but there should never come as a result of your reel. Seven Reels are tested, proven, and guaranteed to be the most reliable on the planet. Check out the entire lineup at sevenreels.com.
I like it. I mean, it's added a lot of excitement to fishing for myself because you get to see how fish react, and you get to learn things that you never knew walleyes would ever do. I mean, on Lake Superior, we were literally catching fish on the surface. I mean, we were casting at fish so you could see swirl when they came to chase your bait. They were so high up in the water column. Never in a million years before live would you ever think that a walleye is going to be on the surface over
you couldn't graph it.
30 feet of water.
Yeah,
you couldn't drive over them. You're never going to 2D them. You're never going to side scan those fish. But there they are. You're catching fish that if you look hard enough, the fins could be out of the water. I mean, it's remarkable. So the scary part is where it could go. That's the flip side to this.
Right.
You fast forward 10, 11, 15, 20 years. So I think at some point, I mean, you will have to, put some limitations on it. Which I'm
sports,
okay
right?
With. It's one deucer, maybe, limit the amount of graphs, and I'm fine with that, but you're not going to stop technology, nor should you, because you would have had to go back in time and say, okay, no global maps. Right. I mean, that's still probably a little bit more cutting edge and being able to, roll up to a, secret hump that only, grandpa knew about for, 80 some years.
Right. Now everyone line up with the tree and the flagpole over there, and here it is.
Yeah. Yep. Still probably more cutting edge. That wasn't stopped. That wasn't restricted. So you can't stop technology.
Nope, you're not gonna stop it. I mean, there'll be some restrictions, like you said. How far does it go? It's going to continue to get better, and it's going to be like, okay, whoa, pump the brakes. You seen it in baseball, aluminum bats, golf does it with balls. Yep. I mean, everybody kind of puts we still need to keep the human element very involved with this, Mm-hmm. But technology can get to the point where the human element is driving the boat. And I mean, you're probably going to have to make the cast, I would assume. Someday you can still by yourself, but that may be about it. So it is.
And I think the scarier part of what I'm, personally seeing in my, 26 years at this is it's becoming a spending game, which I don't like, because you'll start to separate a bit by just how well off you are.
Yep.
And I don't like that part of it, because now you can spend your way to wins.
Yep.
And that's a little bit of the unfortunate side of some of these, graphs getting to be, $7,000-8,000 and multiple deucers that are getting up there $2,500 a piece, and no limits on horsepower, and you're seeing 500s show up. So that part of it I don't like, because I think it should always, be a fair playing field where you don't have to just spend more than the next guy.
And it's going to keep some really, really good sticks out of it.
Yep, it is, which is kind of a
You're,
little bit
you're the
sad to see. And
right. You're the world champ. It's like, no, you are, because you can afford to be. There's 50 other guys that could probably give you a good run for your money, but we can't. I'm still running a 90 horse, whatever the case is, and and unfortunately those fish are 90 miles away. I mean, there's guys that just don't fish tournaments because of that stuff. They're like, oh no, I can compete and do it, but I don't have a boat that's got a fuel capacity to go, because they're used to this launching where they need to launch. But all of a sudden the tournament's over here, or it looks like the weather's going to be crap, and they're like, I can't go out and do that stuff. I'm going to sink my ship's going down. So we got a minimum, maximum, requirements on there, but it's pretty big.
Yeah, and I think we've crossed that threshold already.
Yeah.
Yep. So, and that'll only probably get worse. And I get it from the business standpoint. You need to, you need to keep selling to your customer base. You need to, go from 4 to 500 horse motors, and go from 22-foot boats to now adding 23s. But used to be 50, 60 grand for a tournament rig was getting up there. It was a tough thing to swallow. Now by the time you deck them out in electronics and you're 150 to 180, I mean, 10 years from now, it's going to be $250,000, and it's going to become a game of outspending the next guy.
Yeah,
and you can create an advantage with spending more money with bigger boats and more horsepower and more electronics. And so we've hit that threshold, and that I'm a little bit more turned off by than probably forward facing sonar.
Yeah, I mean, forward-facing sonar is fun, but I hear you. I saw the price tag at a sports show for that 23-foot Vexus with the 500 of 225 grand, and I'm like, seriously, all right. I mean, whatever, you got it, knock yourself out. A friend here, guy that's got one, and it's a hell of a boat. I mean, if you can afford it, that's what you want. It's your business, knock yourself out. That's a chip. That's a lot. That's a lot of fiberglass flowing down. That's a lot of horsepower. That for some, you're like, oh boy, I hope that that guy doesn't get that fast of a boat. That could be a problem. That's probably what people say about me. Drive like a bat out of hell. So I'm like, I like to go fast. So it is. It's it's just kind of we just got to see where things go. But technology will evolve. The products will evolve, because you got to keep, as you know, Rod, you got to keep making new stuff to keep the consumers happy and get them what they want, and then make the modifications with the forward-facing sonar, the techniques and the baits that come out require sometimes a new rod, right? A new action or new length or something that kind of works better into that style. Could be the grip, or whatever the case is, being. So with new lines, or maybe everybody starts running 1.5 ounce jigs all over, and you need to run some. Now you're getting into medium heavies, and and like, wow, it just things are going to change, and that's the way it is. And the best tournaments change with it, or tournament anglers change with it as fast as possible. I think when Hoyer was cleaning house years ago, and Dewey came in board, they were kind of cutting edge, forward facing, moved, just committed. We all knew it, but some committed to it earlier, to just full on, this is it, this is how it's done, and it showed. While a bunch of us still trolling boards and lead and cranking around and catching fish and thinking you got a good day, then you come in and realize this guy's got 10 pounds more than you do because he picked out the fish you wanted. You're like, man, I'm missing something.
Early adopters had a great run.
Yep. And you were one. So, and then fishing on those lakes in Minnesota where you're at was really a good place to learn it and adapt it, because rivers could be a little trickier.
Yeah, it's it's clear water. It's really spooky fish. A lot of fish to spend in the tournament lakes that we have here. So it's just real conducive to live scope and those. And it was a slugfest early. The guys that figured it out early had a very, very nice run. And I'll probably look back my entire life at that little time period of what we're able to do within that before, everybody had it. And it was a rare, unique, situation, and likely, we won't see that kind of a unique opportunity probably ever again. It's hard to say for sure, but it was a unique thing, and it was a fun ride.
I would like to see that, the changes moving forward is like your aim stuff and like how you're doing the catch, photo, release type stuff. I think, and I know most tournament anglers are really good stewards, and everybody's like, you're wiping out fisheries with live scope, you're blah, blah, blah. I don't think that's quite the case. Maybe some places it is, maybe certain species it is. Beta knock was a good showcase of the Sheboygan Walleye Club, I think it is, or something like that, that raised tons of money and puts out like 250,000 walleye in a year there. We're like, yeah, whatever they're doing, it's working. It's doing good. But then you got Lake Hawaii tournaments, and June through September, they're all killer tournaments because they don't think the live wells can keep the fish alive. And that's the biggest crock of crap I've ever heard, because trying to catch those fish in your live well in July when you go to weigh in is a son of a bitch, because those things are live as hell. I don't mean boats aren't from the 1940s. These are aerators are good, and G-juice and all the stuff. And it's not easy. You got to babysit, and there was plenty of dead fish at Green Bay, and the water's hot like that no matter what. But there's guys, I don't know, Hummel would travel with a pump and a long tube, and it's 20 foot down in the water, pulled cold water up into his live well. I'm like, people start doing things like that.
Yeah, I had a whole cooler full of ice, and that was my strategy to keep. And I was able to weigh, my 10 were alive, but it was a challenge.
It's a challenge. You got to babysit them, but it's work. But at least having the option in these summertime tournaments to release those live fish, I think, is huge. And every state does that except the Dakotas. I know Skakawea gave NWT a permit last time to do that. However, the holding tanks weren't very cold, and those fish were going belly up when they hit it. At least there's a plan in place. They're not going to waste. But I would say it's not very sustainable. However, I feel like all the fisheries are very healthy. I think Green Bay just showed you how it was. I don't know how I don't get to fish with Minnesota lakes, but they keep adjusting limits or raising, making some modifications. I think the GillNet surveys and the DNR and GFPs are doing pretty damn good work, and they're going to be the ones to tell you whether you need to make changes or not for the most part. The general public really doesn't know.
I get this question all the time, so I feel like I've talked to it ad nauseum. But my response is always, Mother Nature always finds a way to protect herself. And it kind of goes back to that unique little run that we had. And, it was pretty easy early on with forward facing sonar on our lakes. I mean, you saw a suspended fish and that thing's going to bite about, 9 out of 10 times. Almost every fish bit. It was laughable how easy it actually was. I tell you what, now it's about 1 in 30 on a good day. So that's just kind of, what I say all the time. Mother Nature finds a way to protect herself. And, that's the big argument. Just because you have it doesn't mean you're catching fish. I mean, we've found that we are scrambling, trying to find different things and techniques and line diameter and unique jigs and things to trigger a bite, because it's got so difficult. Fish that we used to see 6 years ago that everyone would bite, now you're just like, what is it going to take to get bit? It can be super hard, and I think that is Mother Nature, protecting herself, because she always does that. I mean, our conversations now is, okay, every fish you got to evaluate, and you got to make a decision on what the trigger is going to be for that fish. We used to never walk fish to the bottom. Now we're finding, even on Green Bay, I had to do this when they got moody. The fish would be, 8, 9, 10 feet down over, 25 to 30. And I knew that fish wasn't going to upbite. I could tell by the mood of that fish. And you're walking that thing all the way down to the bottom and making that fish, pick that bait up off the bottom. So it's forcing us into having to do some unique things. I mean, we're looking at angles a lot more. Used to be able to take some light line and make a really long cast, but when you're out horizontally and trying to work a cadence, you're pulling away from that fish immediately. And if they're not super aggressive like they used to be, they're not going to close that gap. So now you got to be a little bit more sneaky to get a little bit vertical. So your cadence is sitting right above them, and the jig isn't moving forward so much. Or you walk them to the bottom. We didn't have to do that years ago. So Mother Nature finds a way. So I think that's always going to hold true.
Yep. Nope. I agree. the fish have a little brain, but that brain is big enough for that little body, and it keeps.
Yeah.
They're getting educated, and like it's getting tougher. I mean, you're seeing some of us at Hawaii now. They're like they're there. I just can't get them to bite. I'm like you said, it's 1 out of 30 versus 9 out of 10. They've seen a jig and crawler sitting in front of their face a gazillion times at this point, going, "Yeah, I know what that is." Or my buddy was next to me yesterday, and he saw that, and I've never seen him again. So I'm not touching that thing. That's I think dropping them on the bottom helps that a lot, because that's where a lot of that critters are at, that they're just like, all right, that looks safe. But when it's just, night crawlers don't live in the lake, folks. They're not roaming around in the middle of the water column, unless a good rain washes a bunch of them in, but that's not normal forage. So it's resembled an insect or whatever, of course. But
and that's something that we had to adapt to, and that really happened. We started seeing that about 3 years ago, where just every guy's throwing a jig and crawl, and everyone's trying to reel it away from them and get that trigger. They're educated to that in a lot of times. So we've had to really scramble to try to figure out some different tactics and techniques that we can trigger fish more consistently. And I think the difference is a lot of guys will just keep square peg round hole, where you got to recognize, hey, that's not going to work, and you're going to have to change the angle. You're going to have to walk them to the bottom. You're going to have to do something a bit different to create that trigger. I mean, every guy is coming in on stage saying, boy, we sure had our opportunities. We saw the right fish. They followed it. We just couldn't get them to open their mouth. That's everybody has that story. It's, we're finding that we're having to play with fish a lot more and get them to dance and move around and bring them up and bring them back down and open the bail and get more depth to get them away from the boat a little bit, and really mess with those fish a lot more, because with forward facing sonar, they've gotten a lot tougher to trick.
Yeah, I walk a lot of them to the bottom, but I would say the angle is probably overlooked. I'm not. People say, "Oh, you throw it 1 or 2 times, it doesn't react." I'm like, I've caught a lot of fish on the 5th, 6th, 7th cast. If it's a good one, I'm just going to work it, and it's
the angle's huge.
Here you are, right? You're positioned and you're throwing, and then it's all right.
Yeah.
You're doing this, or like you said, get right over the top, and just like you, I'm sure you got half a dozen rods rigged up with a jigging wrap, a plastic, a crawler, or whatever, and you're throw this, throw that. What's it going to take? Yep. There's those times where they're spooked, right? It drops. You're like, you're not even touching it. And it's like, you're like,
yeah,
what the hell? But then you throw something else and it could be the same fish and it turns around and just flies up. I've had them the other day, it was a tournament somewhere not too long ago, but I think the 6th time I got it. No, it was the Africa Walleye Throwdown. Jig and wrap. Was that one? No, the first one I caught, first 30.5 I caught was a jig and crawler. And I'm like, you could tell this one, it wasn't going away. Like, he wants to eat. But it was, until I got vertical, he went up. And then I knew that was over. When he went straight vertical, I'm like, okay. But it was the 6th cast. And it was kind of about this way behind it. And then he finally got close enough. I'm like, whatever. Bloop. Dropped straight down. And as he's dropping, he just turned and went. Whoosh. I was like, there it was. But most people would have gave up and just moved on.
Prime example of you got to mess with them quite a bit more. Early days it was get it near them and they start to arch up and it's game over.
You're like, get the net, and I haven't hooked it yet. You're like,
get the net. This thing's now you're up, down, bring them to the bottom. Watch them tumbleweed on bottom. Don't lose sight of them. They raise back up to where they are. You come back at a different angle, and and then eventually, you get that fish to bite, and that's the discipline of it, and just
it is discipline, patience, and obviously boat control. Yeah. So it's easy to lose them when you lose them. Get down to the bottom. All right, we've been going on here a while, Joe. We're going to leave our listeners with a few more of the million tips you already have. You got a golden nugget, something like that, to leave them to help them on their angling journey, whether it's tournaments or just fishing or pro staffing. Any words of wisdom?
Yeah, we talked a lot about angles. That's kind of in our tournament, group. The big thing that we're focused on is trying to, get angles to create that trigger. But being a rod builder, I definitely have seen a lot of advantage with picking the right rod for the technique.
Mhm.
And we're going to real long rods. The last two NWTs have been one on the 7.6 JTX Lite. If you fast forward back 10 years, no one was using a 7.6 Lite in the tournament world, but we're just finding that light action. I mean, you're able to just, wave that tip like a wand and create a trigger. And then the other benefit of that is a light rod is it's gonna have a parabolic bend. So when you're handing a rod off to a co-angler and the whole rod is bending, you feel pretty comfortable. You got a lot of margin for error there. So I would say rod selection has been really, really key and important in trying to create that all important trigger. Being able to really wave that tip like a willow branch kind of is we're able to trigger a lot of bites. And then when you have a light rod like that, it's you got a lot of forgiveness. I was talking with Jade and he's like, I don't get a lot of bites, but he goes, I don't lose a fish on that rod. He's like, that's been key. I might only get 5 or 6 bites like he did at the North Dakota Gov Cup. He's like, I can't lose one of those. So it's super important to have that rod bending like a rainbow. So
yeah, I've upped mine. I love my 610s. I've been a 610, rod size forever, but I went to the 7.1, 7.3s a little bit more this year for scoping purposes. Really, just when you're suspended fish, being able to hover that bait along the rod makes that easier to do. And obviously with the light, if it's a jig and crawler bite, boom, they can let them suck on that and get that in there without necessarily having to open the bell. But obviously you can open the bell as well. But still, the initial having that soft tip initially, you're not going to be like, oh, you're like, oh, if you're a little late to it, you had a little give. So it's definitely more forgiving. And then of course, like I said, keeping that thing bent is key as a guy to hand rods off. If we got kids and they're all hook and be like, all right, here you go. But the first thing they do when you hand a rod off is we're probably standing sideways in the boat is they always want to grab it and they're going to turn, to like the back or whichever way that fish is. They're going to do that fast and they're going to drop it.
Yeah.
And so I don't let go of the
load. Yep.
I hand it to them and I keep my hand on it and I keep pulling and I just say, start reeling. And until they are fully engaged with reeling before I let go of that rod until I see it load up. And it's probably uncomfortable because I've got my arm around their whole body. I'm like, reel, keep reeling. And I'm pulling away and I'm like, all right, you got it. So years ago, I would hand it to them and they would just immediately, they drop it to get comfy like they took it out of the rod holder or whatever the case is. And I'm like, if you drop that rod tip, that wallay's gone.
Rod comes out of load, it's gone. So we're a big proponent of making sure you got, a really long sweeping load curve. So it's changed. It's changed a lot from the past. It was extra fast action, 6.6, 6.9. That they still have their time and place, but the majority of what we've done for the last, 6+ years is, I make an 8-foot panfish rod now that guys are using for walleyes, and it's sneaky good. So what's the limit on that too? I mean, making those long casts, you can fish with lighter line when you have a lighter rod because you absorb it into the blank. So you're more stealthy. You're making longer casts with, we use a lot of 8-pound braid. You can take that stuff by hand and just go right. But if you have a light rod that's absorbing it, you can get away with it. So there's just so many advantages to that longer, light rod. And I don't know where the end is. Every single year I seem to get asked for longer and longer rods. Maybe next year it'll be 10-footers. I don't know. I mean, it's
they're gonna have to make these rod lockers a little bigger in the boats.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I got a couple 12-foot lead cord on the side of my boat, and they come all the way to the back. So they're a pain in the ass to haul around. But you get it as a rod guy. I've explained it to people for years. I'm like, there's a reason that rod companies make so many different rods for technique specific. I'm like, it makes a difference. And as a jig fisherman, that's obviously where your money needs to go in your jigging rod. But it can make the difference of you catching 30 fish and your buddy that's using some Walmart knockoff, whatever type thing, he'll catch fish. Maybe he's going to catch 5 or 10.
Yep.
And he's like, difference. Right. What are you doing? You're just that much better. And it's like, you can give that. There obviously the human element involved with it too, but
You know, he could be a hell of a stick and a jig guy, but he doesn't feel the bite, or he's missing them all. It's too stiff or too light or whatever. It's just not the right rod for the right situation.
Just not the right rod to create a trigger with whatever you're fishing with, you know, and that's why we really push on and educate technique specific. I mean, I look at my rods and it has a real narrow, technique that is perfect for. And once you get outside of that, it's not a very good rod for what you're trying to, use it for. You wouldn't grab my snare rod and try to jig wrap fish with it. It'd be a horrible rod. Right. But it has a very specific, technique in it. It's become even more important with forward-facing sonar and trying to create that trigger. Is you really rods, I would say now, create a bigger advantage than maybe they ever have. I mean, a trolling rod, wasn't really that specific. I mean, as long as you could pull a board and had, it was soft enough, you're probably going to get that fish in. But when you're individually picking out a fish, and you know how fickle and moody they are, and it could be the most subtle thing that creates that trigger where they go from follow to actually open their mouth and bite. It's critically important that you're able to put the right cadence into that jig crawl or that jig wrap or that finisher or whatever have you. And there's very specific rods that can do that a lot better than others.
Yep. And you get the right line matched up with that, you got a deadly combination. That makes another overlooked category. We could talk forever about lines.
That's a whole nother podcast.
That's a whole other podcast. Well, rods is for one. So awesome, Joe. Thanks a ton. Appreciate it. That is some good stuff. Looking forward to where we all go in the future, what tournaments we're fishing and circuits we're going, but I'm pretty sure we'll run into each other out there on the trail somewhere, hopefully next year. I don't know. I'm definitely going to be hitting the Mississippi River next year. Love that place. Love fishing there. I know AIM goes there a lot, so I can get Randy on board with that one because we're probably not scoping a whole lot, but it'd still be used. But boy, if he can toss a willow cat and work a wing dam, he's on board. So
all right, we'll see you up here. Looking forward to it. Thanks for having me on the show. Enjoyed my time here.
We can't wait. So thank you all for tuning into this episode, Real Talk Fishing with No Limits. You can catch us over on the Walleye Guys YouTube page or Facebook page or Spotify, Google, Amazon, all those podcast platforms. We're there. Come listen to Joe. We're talking rods, fishing, and all that good stuff. So stay safe. Keep those lines tight, folks, and we will see you on the water.